Delivery boys of Reddit, what is the weirdest delivery you ever did? Story 1. I had a delivery that needed to be signed for and nobody answered the door when I knocked. I went to my car to write a notice slip when a woman started waving me up and pointing to the back of the house. So I walked back and she isn't there. In fact, nobody is there, so go knock on the back sliding door. A guy in his 60s weighing at least 300 ibs answers and is wearing nothing but a small Alf shirt. He's kind of pulling the front down to cover his balls, but his dogs were barking and he spun around and bent down in their little faces yelling at them. Asshole right in my face. Then he turns back to me and I ask him to sign for his package. He lets go off his shirt, which bounces up to his belly button and lets his digging balls fly free. I got the signature and race, walked back to the car to get the hell out of there. It was so uncomfortable. Story 2. Delivered 30 pizzas to an Amish family. About a 35-minute drive. The entire family met me outside to grab a pizza. I took the rest in and followed them inside to their dining table. The elder of the family gestured to me to sit down with them, and he pointed to the one open seat. I realized that they saved me a seat to eat with them. I didn't know too much about the Amish back then, and I wasn't sure how rude it would be to say that in working and shouldn't. I was also thinking, on the other hand, they could have killed me. Remember, I wasn't an educated 16-year-old, so I sat down and ate 2 slices of pepperoni pizza with them. I found the girl across the table to be very attractive. They said a prayer of some sort and didn't talk much after that. Just asked my name and how thankful they were for me to drive all that way. I finally had to get back to work. They didn't tip, which was fine. I enjoyed the time with them. This was in 2005. I think it was for Pizza Hut in Fort Wayne. The curiousness of how they ordered. I don't know about all families, but I saw a lot of Amish heads. Of households, fathers typically. Carry cell phones for business purposes. Besides farming, a lot of families made furniture for the clothes displays in stores and at malls and such. They had huge barns to make furniture. They would have huge generators behind the buildings to run the equipment. They can't be connected to city power and the generators couldn't run electricity for the house or lights. But the rules for the barn was different somehow. They aren't as disconnected as one may think. However, their house was completely standard by Amish terms. Still had to heat up the bath old-fashioned. There were flies all over. No fans, etc. I didn't see how they kept food cold, if at all, during the summer. No washer/dryer. But the generators sure did help with their business practices. Running tools and such. They also don't drive, but they have vans and they would hire a non-Amish driver to take them to the city sometime. Story 3. I delivered pizza to a house. The instructions said to open the gate and go into the backyard and knock on the back door. Now, I was really early. I showed up at their door probably about 15 minutes after they had placed the order, as we were very slow. As I entered the backyard, I heard really loud moaning coming from the open window and realized the customers were having sex. I'm not the one to ruin a good time, so I decided to wait until they finished before I knock on the door. I just stood there in their backyard with a pizza in my hand for a good 10 minutes. One of their neighbors heard what was going on and saw me in there and decided to pop outside and just stand there staring at me the whole time, making sure that I'm not stealing anything. Anyway, most awkward 10 minutes of my life. Story 4. I was a delivery boy for an Asian restaurant for a while. Had a delivery down a sketchy, very bumpy road in the back of my small town near all these trailers. When they answered the door, there was a 50-60-year-old lady standing completely naked in front of me, as well as 2 men of the same age sitting on the couch with their dongs out. Again, completely naked. I obviously got out of there as fast as possible. I took her signature and nearly ran away. She yelled at me through the window, "Come inside with us." And I said, "Fuck no," as I was walking away, and she proceeded to curse at me as I jogged back to my car. It's interesting what kind of people you meet. Story 5. The guy who answered the door looked like he had just seen a ghost and was a little jittery, So I'm pretty sure he was on some kind of drugs. Anyways, he hands me $10 for a $15 bill and tries to go back inside really quick. I realize that he didn't hand me enough money, so I knock on the door and tell the guy he still owed me like $5. So he starts patting his pockets and finally pulls his hand out too as if to give me more money, but has nothing in his hand. He extended his hand to give me this imaginary money and was visually surprised when I wasn't fooled by his trickery. The guy does this 2 or 3 more times before having me call my manager to attempt to use his card to pay, even though I'm sure he knew it wouldn't work. At this point, he goes back inside because he just heard his roommate come in and is going to borrow money from him. So I wait until I knock again. The guy cracks the door, sees it's me, and closes the door again really quick like he was surprised I didn't go away. Eventually, after about 10 minutes of annoyance and feeling like I might get stabbed, I told the guy I either needed money or the food, which he reluctantly gave back. All in all, a very strange experience. Story 6. This is definitely one of the most memorable deliveries I had when I worked as a driver for this Japanese restaurant. It was sent to this house with an order of a steak hibachi and a couple of sushi rolls that added up to something like $19.60. I like to call before I got to a place just to give people a bit of a heads up. So by the time I got to the door, it was already open. In the doorway stood a chubby kid about 9 or 10 years old that reminded me a lot of the kid from Bad Santa, but without the curly hair. I tell him the total as I pass off his food. He hands me a $20 bill, and with a straight face, he smugly says, "Keep the change, pal." Immediately after, he closes the door, and I stood there for a second trying to process what just happened. When I got back to my car, I noticed the time and realized it was way too early for that kid to be home from school. I couldn't help but laugh at the situation. No wonder he sounded a bit cocky when he told me that I could keep the 40 cents in change. This kid probably faked being sick so he could stay from school and was probably in there watching TV or playing games, eating sushi, and feeling like a big shot. I know I would have at age. Story 7. This was in my first month of delivering pizzas. I pull up to a fourplex, 2 floors, 2 apartments per floor, and knock on the correct door. After a minute, an old scruffy Russian-sounding guy answers the door and says, "How much?" I told him the total, and he walks off to get money. I look over to my right and can see the top of his wife's head poking over the back of a recliner. She is gabbing away with a friend on the phone, going on and on. After a minute or two of listening to her wondering what is taking this guy so long, I hear a change jar being emptied on the counter. This guy seriously is about to pay me with all the change and doesn't even have it counted. Shit. I sighed hard, but was thankful we were slow at the time, so I wouldn't really miss out on any money waiting for this guy. So here I am, listening to this old lady blabbing on, not understanding pretty much anything she is saying, while I can hear the old man scooting change around as he counts it. Finally, after a solid 5 minutes of standing there, the man walks out and says something to his wife in a foreign language. She rotates the chair around so I can clearly see her, and there is no phone. I immediately stuck my head inside looking for a phone. I can see the table by the chair is empty, and there is nothing in her hands. On her lap, on the floor. I looked everywhere for this phone. There wasn't one. She was literally talking to herself / he wall. I started going crazy in my head, wondering what was going on. She starts talking to the air again and turns her chair back towards the wall. The guy goes and grabs the money and hands me a bag. It was filled with nickels and dimes. There was not 1 quarter or silver dollar or anything. I just looked at him, bewildered. Then to her, mouth slightly agape, wondering what was happening. "Is 20 cents for you?" I said nothing. I turned around with my bag of change and walked back to my car. The whole thing took about 15 minutes, most of which was spent with me standing in a wide open door in the middle of summer, listening to a crazy old lady talk to the wall. When I got back to the store, I plopped the bag of money down and explained what happened. My manager says you never know what to expect. Hell, a few months ago, someone delivered to a porn shoot and saw all the women walking around naked. I never found out if that was true or not, but I like to think it is. Story 8. I was delivering pizza once in a pretty sketchy neighborhood, and I came up to a gated apartment complex where I saw a dude waving me down. Sometimes customers in apartment complexes used to meet us outside if they knew their complex was complicated, so I'm thinking what a nice guy. Turns out I was horribly wrong. I let this complete rando into my car who fucking reeks of liquor and cigarettes. I somehow get the words out. Hey man, is this your pizza? This dude is barely coherent and responds with, no, I need a ride. And I'm just freaking out at this point, wondering when the weapon or threats were gonna come out, and I nervously respond with, dude, I totally would, but I can't get pizzas to deliver. Look, check it out. He keeps asking and asking, and I just keep repeating myself saying if I wasn't working, I'd totally help him out. I'm gonna get fired, etc. And after about 10 minutes, the dude stumbles out of my car and goes on his way. So freaky. Lesson learned: double check before letting drunk strangers in my car. Story 9. While I actually am a delivery driver myself, the weirdest experience actually happened when I ordered food to my house. I live in a college section of Pittsburgh with 5 roommates, so it's safe to say the house is constantly gross. The same goes for our front porch, which is just littered in garbage. Well, my driver called me to tell me he was outside. He was outside on the curb walking up to me. My porch is walled in up to about hip height, so I'm peering over as I walk out of my front door to grab the food. In between the wall and I, there is this massive fucking possum looking me dead in the eyes. The driver couldn't see. It was literally the first time I've seen one of these monsters, and I shit my britches. I yelled, just put the food on the ground. Just don't come up here as the last sliver of my masculine identity slivers out of me, sprinting back inside. Safely inside, peering out my window, I see the guy standing halfway up my staircase about 2 feet away from this gargantuan fucking rodent, but his view was still obstructed. He's like, sir, do you not want your food? And I scream from inside, yes. But don't come any further. I will come to you. I leap out the door, past the disease-ridden hare, sack commandeering my porch, snag the bag from his hands, and leap back inside. From my perspective, the whole interaction was me just being a huge pussy about an animal. But from his perspective, I must have seemed like a next-level crackhead or an acid trip gone wrong. Story 10. Was delivering to a neighborhood that typically was kind of sketch, so I always expected no tip or a small one. I rolled up to this lady's house and she said something along the lines of, I don't have the money and my husband will be here in 20 minutes with some cash. It was the last delivery of the night, so I wasn't worried about taking too long, and then she opened up her garage door. There was a pool table and fridge and TV in there, and she gave me a beer and we played pool until her husband came and gave me the money along with a $20 tip. One of the better nights working that job. Lol.